only two things exist. Those two things are your awareness and the appearance of things. Appearance is what we call reality. Sit down with your vision at the beginning of the day. Okay, this is where I'm going. And check in with that for 5 minutes. And then at the end of the day, check in with your vision again and then write down the 3 things you're going to do the next day to move you towards that goal. You got to let go of the how, especially when you're coming up with the vision in the first place. And I find that when I really loosen up my grip on how it's going to happen, that's when the miracle occurs.
You know, I know a little extra contrast will help with the bald head, Mike. I know maybe a hat like what I got on might be an option in the future for you.
Yeah, my wife was telling me to do something about that. I have visions for transforming this studio. My office is set up for great sound, but not great visuals. So
Yeah,
get to change that. Hat might help.
a balance between the two. I was gonna say though, because I was looking at some of the older pictures or whatnot. You had hair, bro.
Oh yeah.
When'd
Oh,
you
yeah.
switch it up?
January. Yeah, this
Any
past
reason?
January. Oh, I watched that bald spot. I'd go to the barber and like look in the mirror and I go, okay, today I knew that the day was coming. My wife wanted me to hang in there a little longer, but I said, I used to when I was in the Navy, I kept it pretty clean and it was just so convenient.
Yeah.
So I took it off. I'm imagining at some point in the future I'll be able to like just rub something on my head and all the hair will grow like a chia pet and I'll bring it back.
Or you can go to Turkey. A lot of guys, they do the hair transplants and they get them knotted in their head and
Yeah, I don't
good to
want to do
go.
that. Yeah, I don't want to do that. No, it's got to be minimally invasive for me to, I don't want it impacting my hormones too heavily. I don't want a surgery. It's got to be like super easy and non-invasive for me to do it.
I like it. That's huge. And what's funny is how these things always line up because a buddy of mine is bald and he's been rocking the bald look since his late 20s. And the catalyst for him was his barber stopping the clippers mid cut and saying, "Bro, I can't take your money anymore. Like this is just not right." Like sometimes you got guys who are that hairline's been retreating for years and
Right.
and it just isn't ethically right for the barber to keep taking your money. But it's a perfect example of like some external forces convincing you on something that you already knew internally, but you just denied for the longest time. Much like his life, right? It's often we deny it until there's just undeniable proof from the outside in that's like, all right, it's time for a change.
Well, I have he won't mind me sharing this. One of my best friends, Boris, we'll probably have him on the show at some point. Boris is my age, and he has a scar across the back of his head because when you do a hair transplant, they're going to pull the hair off the back of your head and they're going to put it on the front of your head. It's usually thicker back there. So he was going bald in his 20s and he felt self-conscious about it. So he went and got a surgery done. It was botched. It didn't go well. So he got a second. Didn't work very well. Got a third. I want to say he got 3, maybe 4. Finally, it took. And then he got involved in personal development work and then realized, oh, I love myself. I accept myself for who I am and how I look and everything. And he starts shaving it off he's like, oh, there's just a much more convenient thing. I actually prefer how I look to me. And so he could have hair, but he just shaves it off now. It's just a very interesting thing because people spend a lot of money and to either get hair transplants or they're taking some drugs that are throwing off their hormones in other ways in order to keep that hairline going.
Yeah, man, that's a perfect story leading into the full stack response today with some of the Q&A questions that we have. It leads perfectly into the first question because some folks are probably listening to this right now. They're like, all right, guys, we're talking about hair. How does this make sense? But it's the external reality versus our internal reality. And when those don't match up, we feel that gap. And for a lot of us, the stress, the anxiety, the elevated heart rate, that's all because we're stuck in that gap and we can't bridge the two. So jumping into the first questions, Mike, I wanted to ask this one. It's on internal work versus the external work. And the question says, how much of the barrier between where we are And where we want to be is internal, i.e., beliefs, identity, versus external, i.e., resources and environmental. How do we know where to focus first?
That's such a good one. How do we know where to focus first? Well, the longer I've been in this game, the more I've learned to go straight internal every time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a rabbit hole question. And what I mean by that is we could take this all the way. We could get down to like our existence of what generates reality.
Let's go
Because
there.
so only there are only two things exist, right? We're going to just go straight in the deep end. Only two things exist in this world. And those two things are your awareness and the appearance of things. Appearance is what we call reality. And so we are receiving information through our six senses. So most people consider, the five senses, but there's a sixth sense, which is the mind. And these are all ways that we're interpreting what we consider to be an external world. So we're gathering all this information and we're experiencing it, and our awareness is what's experiencing the appearance, the reality of things. So there's only two things that exist. If we get down to the base of things, and this is the most base level conversation around duality. So usually when people talk about duality, it's like masculinity versus femininity, hot and cold, or fast and slow. There's duality in this world, everything has to be balanced out. But if we go down to the most ground level duality, it's awareness and appearance, or we'll say awareness and reality. But only one of these things can be true. And there's only one of the things we can validate to be true. We can't validate reality as truth. The only thing that we can truly validate is our awareness. It's the only thing that I can absolutely know is true, is that I am aware. Outside of that, everything else is being filtered through my perception.
So would you say what we are aware of becomes our reality?
In this case, what we get to play with is awareness generating reality, and for what purpose?
Yeah.
So, because if we're getting to truth, then we're getting to source. The truth is source, and the source is awareness. And why would awareness ever create a mirror? Why would awareness ever want a reflection? Well, to be amused. And so, because it's really boring to be aware of nothing. And so that is, if we want to take this conversation into a non-dual reality conversation, that's what I find to be the most empowering perspective to hold. Is it absolutely true? I cannot know if awareness is the only thing that's actually true, but it's the only thing that I can validate to be true. And so if I hold the position, what I find is I am much more interested in what is useful to believe than what is true. Because if we're always looking for the truth inside of this and in the appearance of things, in this thing we call reality, then we're always going to be guessing, things will be shifting. And if I take on the belief that my awareness is generating everything, that then means that I am the creator of everything that I'm experiencing. What's a more empowering position than that?
Yeah, I can't think of one.
I haven't thought of one either.
It brings me to the thought, right? When you come from that position of awareness, I automatically think of the lady looking in the ditch, hoping not to go in the ditch, and when they're steering the car, and they're like, well, if you're looking there, you're going to steer where you're looking. And when it comes to that awareness, it's it's typically the people who are crazy enough to believe that they can change the world that end up changing the world. And you
Mm-hmm.
can say that belief or that thought process, take for example, a Jeff Bezos, who would say, best thing to sell online is books because they have the most SKUs. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to build out more SKUs, and then boom, Amazon. If Jeff Bezos is
Right.
operating in an awareness of reality, we don't get an Amazon, because we live in a world where things get created from our imagination, or in the case of this discussion, we would say awareness, right? The awareness of what's possible. And oftentimes it could be something that isn't in reality yet, becomes reality because of, to your point, we believe we are capable of this. We believe that I can take this idea, create it into an actual product or service, and bring it into the world, which then becomes reality. Am I gauging that right? Because that kind of sits on the question of the barrier before internal and external progress.
Yeah, I went deep right off the bat here, so we're gonna back it out because some people that can be a head scratcher maybe for the rest of your life. I know it is for me, and it gets deep, and there's layers to that conversation because until you peeled back certain layers of the onion, that could be again that's something I continue to peel back layers. I go, oh, even that, even that, even that, and so yeah, the what we believe is what we're creating. And so this also makes me think about the if we want to get really scientific, if we want to get into like reality based conversation here, um, is the RAS, the Reticular Activating System, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
part of the brain that filters out all the information. Because if we were to be present with every bit of data that we're coming in through every sense, then we would be overwhelmed with information constantly. And so the RAS basically helps us filter all the filter the world out so that we can operate without just being in awe constantly. You'd be in constant awe if you shut that part down. I've had experiences where we intentionally shut down the reticular activating system and the filter drops, and I'm not getting anything done that day. I'm simply in awe of what's around me and get really consumed about my fingerprint or something like that. And so it's a really useful thing for us to get things done. But we can program the RAS, and the RAS comes pre-programmed, and we start programming it as we go along. And it can be beliefs, it could be colors, it could be whatever. There's a common story about RAS, a good analogy that's used by many people who talk about this. I'm not the only one talking about this. Is you buy a car, you buy Mark England tells a story about buying a particular pickup truck. I've heard people talk about, like, I went and bought a red Toyota Camry, and then afterwards I didn't realize how many Toyota Camrys were on the road because I'm now programmed my reticular activating system to be looking for that. So now it's present there. Am I creating it, or am I just now present with it? And so if we look at it from like you talk to a neurologist, they'd go, yeah, you're just now noticing this. And so, which is fine. We can talk about that too. And so I see this in entrepreneurship. You want to make more money, put yourself in a room full of people making more money. And you're going to start seeing opportunities. You're going to start hearing about, oh, this guy did this kind of deal, or this guy made this kind of a business. And you're like, oh, I could do that too. So now you program your RAS to certain types of deal structures. You program your RAS to certain types of business models. Um, and so now you start seeing those opportunities everywhere. And so uh, I'm real big on what am I exposing myself to? Like I I don't listen to certain types of music. I for years refused to listen to any music that had lyrics in it at all
Hmm.
because the RAS can be programmed through repetition. And the thing about music that's really it's magic is, oh, I'm going to give you a beat. Now your body's going to start agreeing to it. You're going to be tapping your foot. You're agreeing to what this music, and then the lyrics drop, now you're agreeing to whatever it is that I'm singing. Who was it? I Am a Survivor? Was that Destiny's Child?
Yeah, Destiny's Child. Shout out to Destiny's Child. What up, Beyonce?
So if you listen to those lyrics, you had every young woman in America tapping their foot, singing along in their car. But if you listen to the lyrics in that song, you're running a program. You're running a program for survival,
Mhm.
for just making it and being happy with that. Why not reprogram? Why are you running that program? You could be running a program that's way more empowering. That is a commonly referenced song for female empowerment in America, and it is the opposite.
Mhm.
And so it's really, really sneaky. So people should be careful. So music, you got to be incredibly careful about what music you're listening to. So when I got hip to this whole conversation, I go, oh, what have I been listening to? Okay. I'm going to cut out all lyrics and I'm going to start sitting with my own thoughts and see what's there. How am I programming my RAS? Who am I surrounding myself with? What conversations am I exposing myself to? What kind of shows am I watching? So music, all the media. Here's the thing. If you want to live the average life, if you want to be mediocre, consume mainstream content. Because the average person that's what they're programmed with. You want to go up a level, tune into a different frequency. And so it starts, I go internal first. If you want to do it the hard way, you're going to go ahead, operate with your current belief system and run a program and see what kind of output you get. If I want my phone, when I pick it up, if I want it to be fast, if I want it to be able to do all the things I want to do, I'm going to get the iPhone 17. If I want to run an old program, I can run an old program. It's going to lag. Apps are going to shut down when they're not supposed to. Things aren't going to work properly. Well, go get an iPhone 13. Go do that. But the human is the same exact thing. Is what program are you running? What's your operating system? And then what apps do you have loaded on there? Do you have nothing but social media apps on your home screen where you're just tapping that all the time? So which programs are you opening on the operating system too? So I really like to think about, when I started thinking about human consciousness, there's a lot of analogies we can use when it comes to operating systems, software, apps.
Absolutely. And what I got from that was delete Beyonce off my playlist and take the social media pages off the home screen, put it to the second screen. But that's all a joke. But you're so right and hitting the nail on the head of whether it's the reticular activating system, our internal beliefs, what we pay attention to, where the attention goes, energy flows, and that's what we give our lives to. And when you sit in a room, what's amazing is last conference I went to, speaking with business owners, or even spending some time yesterday with a guest on the podcast who flew into town just for the day. And you learn how they view life, how they approach life. And the very evident thing is there's nothing drastically different between us. This man puts on his pants one leg at a time, just like I do. He goes to the bathroom and shakes twice like I do. So he's living a life that I'm very much capable of living. And that proximity now rewires how I see things, what I will deem possible, and gives me the audacity, and I say that with intention, the audacity to try something that some of the other folks in my circle might not believe. And I'm sure we've heard the whole quote before: if your circle is limiting you, it's more of a cage than a circle, which is why you want to change your environment. But changing your environment, listening to different music, reprogramming your reticular activating system to be more effective to create the reality in the life that you actually want. So answering this guy's question, or the answer is yes, start within, focus on self first, update that operating system so you could run the latest apps efficiently, and then we could see the fruits of our labor come into fruition in reality.
Yeah, last year for my birthday, around my birthday, I chose to focus on two words, which was passion and ease.
Mm-hmm.
Is I desire to live a life of passion and ease. And every day I said passion and ease, passion and ease, passion and ease. What happened? Well, I started finding work that I was more passionate about. I started finding more ease in every area of my life, including the business. I mean, who wants a business full of passion and ease? I think everybody would love that, right? But they
Mm-hmm.
don't think to do that. They start focusing on like there's not enough money in the bank account, or I can't leave this job because of some health benefits. They're focused on what they don't want instead of what it is they do want, you know. And so, and then around the first of the year, I really focused in on the word, and passion and ease was every area of my life. In business, at the first of this year, I started looking at the word leverage, and I said I'm
Mm.
looking for leverage. Leverage, leverage. Okay, I have a passion. I have a life of passion and ease, but the only thing that the thing that separates me from like an Elon Musk, right? Well, there's a lot of things, but the thing that I've noticed is he's got a level of leverage that's beyond what I have. When he makes a
Mm.
decision or when he makes a deal, it's impacting, you know, millions of people, if not, you know, billions of people on the planet. Everybody, you know, Starlink. So he's got a higher level of leverage. When I make a decision or I make a deal, you know, it's impacting it at the time it was impacting maybe a million people or something like that. If I look at
Mm.
where I was operating in my leverage, because I consult a lot of people who are running companies that are impacting hundreds of thousands. And if I put them all together, I'd say millions of people. And I go, I desire more leverage. And so as the year went on, I started accumulating more leverage, and then the impacts of my behaviors, even though I'm still operating with passion and ease, and I didn't add any more hours to my day, the level of impact that I'm having 10 months later after taking on the word leverage, well, I've got it. There's a lot more leverage, and usually when you're operating your business with higher leverage, it results in higher income.
I'm going to skip a couple questions because I feel like this will resonate perfect with what you were just saying about shifting from external drive to internal purpose. Um, because I love the idea of a word driving that motivation, that focus to cultivate that reality in your life. My wife will tell you I used to have like more of a sound, one of which one year I said cha-ching. It was
Uh-huh.
a cha-ching year, all right. I wasn't too descriptive on which direction the cha-ching was going to go. So I'll leave it at that. But for shifting from external drive to internal purpose, for high performers used to external metrics, money, status, recognition, how do you transition to being internally driven without losing ambition? More of that passion, like you mentioned, but also that internal driver.
Yeah, I find that if I'm experiencing passion and ease, then uh, it people may look from the outside in and say, "Wow, how he's really ambitious," and I'm not experiencing ambition like I did when I was younger. When I was younger, the ambition was felt like I needed to push towards something. There was a level of force. There was grind present, and you know, I went through that, so I had to go through that. I some people say you have to go through that in order to get to the other side, but I've seen some people not go through that. I've I've had clients that came to me when they were in their mid 20s with their first business idea that actually started getting traction, and they didn't have a lot of negative stories about money they got from their parents. They got a lot of positive stories about money from their parents. And they never really had to grind. And 10, 15 years later, they're sitting pretty, and they didn't have to have that experience. And so Whatever it is you believe it has to be true for you to get where you are, you're going to find evidence for that. Uh, if that's what you believe and that's the type of stuff you like on Instagram and you comment on Instagram, the algorithm is going to feed you that reality. And then you're going to say, see, it's true. But your entire world is running off that same algorithm, an algorithm that's only going to, you're going to be able to, the RAS is programmed to only see those things that it believes to already be true and dismiss the things that aren't as, that's not really true. That's not the whole story. That person's not telling the truth. Those types of things. And things get dismissed a lot. A lot of things are dismissed. My drive these days does not have to do with how much I want to change the world. Like I was looking for leverage, right? Because I want to play a bigger game because playing a bigger game sounds fun to me. It's fun, not hard. Not just because I want to make a bunch more money, but because I like being in the rooms where the choices that are and the decisions being made, I mean, are going to make a big impact, and that's fun for me to witness. It's not I don't. There's nothing wrong with the world that I need to fix. I don't have problems with the world. I'm not like, they're not doing that right. I got to make sure that they change. No, I make the shift inside of myself, and then I have fun playing the game that I'm creating.
That's it. I love that. I love that. It reminds me of, and it's funny, I was just having this conversation before our call, and I was talking about the world that we live in, where I'm at, where I'm currently expanding myself to higher capacity, leaning into more leverage. And I'm not anti-society. I just don't fit into that mediocrity mainstream ideology. And I have more awareness of that. And I said, it's not so much that I want to change the world. I want to escape it and build my own world. Now, if there's things that I want to change or people I want to quote unquote save, even Harriet Tubman got out before she went back and got others, and
Yep.
It started with, I need to do this for myself. I love that aspect of like, sounds fun because everything that I'm doing fills me up. And I will say what I'm doing now was once what I did for fun. I was working another job, had a flip camera. I'd cover all the storms, go out. I'd have a camera on my shoulder. We'd go to events after I forecasted. That was fun. And then that paid me. And then while anchoring, I started a podcast. That was fun. That started to pay me. So I am of the mind that we can get paid to live the life that we want to live if we are approaching it with the intentionality of creating something with it, and making something that's going to be impactful and ripple on. So I absolutely love that. And that's where I've leaned more into identity than the outcomes of what I'm doing. When I decided to train for a high rocks race, I looked at my wife and I said, I'm a hybrid athlete now. So now I do hybrid athlete things. I'm not looking for a time. It's my first race, so I don't want to put a gauge to it. But what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to train because that's what hybrid athletes do. I have my concoction. I call it from Space Jam to Mike's Secret Juice, the halftime drink that Bugs Bunny made. It's like an LMNT packet, lemon juice, and coconut water and creatine. Like that's like my ultra hydrator and supplements to revitalize my body. But I'm doing all these things not because of the outcome I'm looking for, which is a certain time at the High Rocks race. It's because of the identity of what I've embodied, who I become. I'm a hybrid athlete, so I do hybrid athlete things. And then the outcomes and the results of the High Rocks race will speak for itself. It will speak for whatever my actions were leading up to that. And then that will give me a measure and a gauge. But I love that whole focus on not being solidified to the outcomes or to the metrics that will just move anyway. You might have a goal of $1 million. Congratulations. Once you hit that, the goalpost moves again. It's a never ending game. But when you have more of that intrinsic approach, it's much better. Go for it.
Yeah, I've never hit a metric that was satisfying.
Yeah. It's not.
I've hit my goals, but I've hit my goals and it's like, I don't even really want to celebrate hitting the goal. It's better for me to look at all the stuff that happened between point A and point B that that got me to the goal, that's what I want to celebrate. That was fun. That was I you know, on a way, you know, the first time on my way to making $1 million, it was uh it was all the side quests along the way that made it just, it's like, yeah, but then there's 20 stories that'll stay with me for the rest of my life, that and things that I learned, that's what I want to celebrate. That's what was satisfying, because by the time you hit that metric, like, you should have accumulated some things that make that metric seem like not that big of a deal for having achieved. But you should reflect on all the things that happened along the way and celebrate those things, because that's life. That's enjoyable. And I remember people telling me early in my career of, like, you know, and make sure to enjoy the process. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I'm miserable right now. But then over time I go, oh, okay. It took some time to realize, like, what that meant. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of time going through the process and not feeling good about myself or about what was happening, but getting to the result and then looking back and I go, you know what? I could have enjoyed that a lot more than I did. And that's the thing I regret most, is not what I did or didn't do, but the fact that I wasn't present and enjoyed the process on the way.
Amen. I'm sure you've read the book Shoe Dog, Phil Knight.
Shoe dog. No, I don't think I have.
It's the origin story of Nike and how that came about.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Great book. I recommend it, by the way. But it goes for like the 10 years where it was Blue Ribbon first, and he's struggling to keep the business afloat. Like, he's selling out the shoes, but literally he's getting a loan from the bank to buy the shoes, selling out to pay back the loan, just to get another loan to buy another batch, and it's just rolling over, rolling over. And this guy is barely making payroll, barely making the loan, but selling out shoes all along the way. And this, Mike, this goes on for almost like 10 years before he finally goes
Yeah.
public. And
Yeah.
overnight, he goes from just a normal guy trying to get this company off the ground to multi-millionaire once they go public. And in the book, he talks about, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I made it, Nike's public and we're great, his instant feeling was like, damn, the game's over. Like, he wants to go back to the grind, right? It's like that old retired police chief behind the desk. Like, I miss the streets. Yes, it's gritty. Yes, it's dirty, and you're gonna get beat up. But that's what lets you know you're alive, man.
I'll have to go read the book, but that also just brings to mind is, like, a lot of times we go to what's familiar. It's
Yeah,
like, it's more familiar to be in the grind. So now I'm going to create scenarios where I have to grind. I know I've done that before.
yeah. That is true. This does work perfect with the third question, dissonance between mindset and metrics, where when our internal reality, beliefs, emotions conflicts with external performance, the results, recognition, how do we manage that tension so we don't burn out or freeze up? This is for somebody who feels like they're the multimillionaire entrepreneur, yet their bank account, their revenues don't quite match that. How do you sit in that gap between the two?
Yeah, there's a quote, which is suffering. Suffering occurs when you're in an argument with reality.
Mm.
And so um, there's there's a paradox that gets to be held, which is, how can I be happy and content with where I am now while also moving towards a future that's greater than what I'm currently experiencing? And so you've run into these people who are, like, really content but not really accomplishing anything in the world. You know, it's like, whatever I have is good enough. And you know, like, more like a hippie lifestyle type of thing of that doesn't look very appealing to the average person. But then the majority of people are striving and striving and striving with zero contentment at all. And it may look good on paper, but their internal world is full of despair and anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
depression, because they haven't accomplished this thing. And so one way to look at it is, how do you hold both simultaneously? So, and then the other way to look at it is, how do I be just ambitious enough to where that tension isn't so great that it's overwhelming, right? So one approach is more of a linear approach, which is, how do I just introduce a small amount of ambition, set really achievable goals that are easy to get, and then just keep setting goals to keep moving. So that's one approach. But the other is, how can I be completely content while also holding a vision of the future? And that's the one that I believe is likely harder to make the shift internally, to hold both of those at the same time. But over the years, that's been what I've invited myself into, is I can be completely content with the way things are now, and this is where I'm going. I'm programming my RAS to be looking for these things and looking for the things that help me get there. But I'm really happy and content with where I'm at right now. And those things seem like opposite, but what I found in just my life is that the most amazing things happen when I can hold paradox, when I can hold two things that seem opposite in nature at the same time.
Yeah, that's why I've really enjoyed running. Yesterday, ran a PR in my 5K after coming off of an injury. That was actually the importance of slowing down, recovering, a couple ice plunges, elevation, all helped, and I ran the PR. But to your point of holding those two truths, when I'm on mile 2 and I want to be done at that point, I'm like, man, let me just finish this 5K. But my focus turned into next step, next step, next step, next step, next step. And as I'm running, I'm like, I could take one more step. I could take one more step. And my joy there is, I got a step done. I got another step done.
Yep.
And the constant is, as long as I keep taking these steps, I'm going to get to the 5K. I'm going to get to the 3 miles, the 6 miles if I'm running that. Whatever I'm running, it's not the focus of how much longer I have left to go. It's not necessarily a focus of how long I've gone so far. I've done that while running, and those mind games, it kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm halfway through. That still sucks, because you're like, oh, I'm still halfway. The first half sucked, so will the second. But when I'm like, okay, next step, next step, next step, that's where I get into a bit of a groove. That's where I get into that momentum. And what I'm gathering is, like what you're mentioning, is those little things, the awareness of your incremental goals or the incremental steps that you take. It's gonna get you there eventually. It's the man that loves walking going farther than the person that's in love with the destination. You need to go through the process in order to get to the other side. There's no shortcuts. There's no jumping over Rainbow Road and getting to the end in Mario Kart. You got to go through the whole course. But that's the beauty of it. And that's what makes each and every single step that much more rewarding along the way.
I mean, a practical application of this in business is, sit down and consider the vision for where you're going at the beginning of the day. Give yourself 5 minutes to do that. Most people don't do that. They just get into whatever the next task is. And then there's other people who don't take action, that they sit and daydream about the future, but don't actually take action. So a really practical way to do this is, sit down with your vision, a 5-year vision at the beginning of the day. Okay, this is where I'm going. These are my values. This is my vision. This is all in the Full Stack Free School. I've got a values and vision section in there where you can go do that. And check in with that for 5 minutes. And then at the end of the day, check in with your vision again, and then write down the 3 things you're going to do the next day to move you towards that goal. And so for me, if I'm ending my day with checking in with my vision and what I'm going to do the next day, and then that way I'm programming my mind to actually be problem solving subconsciously. I'm not consciously problem solving. I'm able to go to bed with ease, and I wake up with the thing, oh yeah, ideas on how to accomplish those 3 things the best possible way. I wake up, I go, oh, new ideas. They're flowing. It's because I programmed myself properly the night before. So if I'm spending 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes out of the entire day on vision, and then I'm spending the rest of the day enjoying my execution, well, over time, what's going to happen is, you're going to notice that you're gradually able to start holding that paradox and going, oh, I'm holding the vision and I'm enjoying the execution, and these are all happening at the same time. And I believe the highest level performers are able to do that really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just beautifully described manifestation, because a lot of folks misunderstand that. And I had a guest on my podcast a while ago. He studied linguistics, and he broke down the root words of Manny and Fest and the word manifestation. Have you ever heard this before?
No.
He mentioned and to bridge off of your visualization and the enjoyment of the action. The person that sits down and visualizes all day, you're not getting anything done. Congratulations, you have a clear, vivid picture of where you want to go, but you're not rowing, bro, so you're not going to get there. And to the other person who's
Yep.
all action, congratulations, you're rowing, but you have one oar and you're just rowing in a circle. You're not going to get there. But when you hold the vision and you take the work towards it, as you mentioned, holding that in your hands, Manny comes from the root words hands, and Fest is create, which manifest literally means with my hands, I create. So a lot of people get that misinterpretation of, okay, manifest is, okay, let me just close my eyes and I can see it, I can smell it, I can feel it. Great. Dr. Joe Dispenza's book is amazing on breaking down that meditation practice. However, there's still the practice afterwards of the implementation of said visualization and going from where you want to go to actually the steps that take you there.
Yeah, you got to command yourself along the way. But I had a coach a while back. Um, I a few years ago, I hit a point where there was a couple months where I didn't feel very motivated or inspired, and and he just reminded me, of set the vision. What are we here to accomplish? And then do the quote unquote right things, do the linear steps in business, because I I have this, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I know this is true in my reality that I've created, is that thing things fall in my lap that are miraculous. Like I experience miracles all the time. And I experience miracles in business. And I noticed that he brought this to my awareness, and I go, oh, I noticed the most miracles occurring when I'm in action. When when I set up a plan and I start executing on the plan, that's when something that doesn't seem related to that plan at all comes in out of left field and goes, oh, here's a deal, or here's an idea, or here's a business partner, or here's a this or that. Is I'm not even looking for that thing, and it fell in my lap. Perfect example. You and me, Ted. How did we meet? This is a prime example.
Yeah.
I put out on social media, I said I'm looking to start a supplement company. Potentially. I didn't start it. Doesn't mean it won't exist in the future. I actually think that having put that in motion out there in the world, there's things circling all the time. But I said, hey, I'm interested in a supplement company. And then Ted hits me up and says, hey, I'm interested in whatever you got going on. Like, I'm interested in this because, you know, yeah, let's hear your side of the story. I put that out, and then you reached out because why?
Yeah, you were looking for I think someone helping with the supplement company. I'm in a position where I'm looking to expand out of my current role and lean more into what I say I'm all about, which is business development, growth, management. And I saw that as an opportunity to reach out to an entrepreneur I've been following and see if you'd give me a shot. And then from there, you're like, let's hop on a call.
Yeah, we get on the call, and I start learning about who Ted is, and I'm learning about the Modern Man podcast, and I'm learning about your background in media. And I had set another intention that I've been holding for a long time, which is I'd like to have a really great. I want to co-host. I don't want a podcast by myself anymore. I want someone I can host a show with, and somebody who really brings something to the table that I don't have. And so we're on the phone. I think it was 5 minutes into the call. I said, I don't think the supplement thing is why we're on a call right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to talk about something else, and
I
transitioned us into that.
I think I said the term full stack too. I think I said something about full stack, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you did. You did. You used the term in the conversation of full stack, and that's what I was tracking in that direction, and I go, okay, that's a little confirmation, little angel drop that in through you or whatever it is, whatever happened there. The miracle occurred, right?
Mhm.
And so it's a really good example of I stayed in action. I had set the intention to find someone to podcast with. That's not necessarily where my attention was in that moment. It was on helping out some of my clients who would benefit from having a supplement company that doesn't currently exist. And so I started putting that in motion. And then lo and behold, the podcast thing comes in. And then
Yeah.
last week I had something come in for the supplement company, by the way. And I had let it go. What I find to be magical is when I set the intention for something and then I get into action and then I just do what's in front of me. And then the thing that I had set an intention for a year ago just comes like flying right in. I go, oh, there it is. That's really common for me. I remember writing down like where I wanted to live in 2013. I wrote it down. I was at a conference and there was a bonus day and he had us do a visualization exercise. I wrote it down. I felt it and I put it in my journal and I didn't look at it again for a year and a half. And then one day I had lived my perfect day at my home in Southern California. I'd moved from Memphis, Tennessee to San Diego. And I opened up I go, oh my God, I think I'm living that day. And I opened it up and I go, whoa, there's two palm trees, just like I wrote about in my journal. And like I'm watching the sunset into the ocean every day. And I spend my time doing these things with these types of people and yada yada yada. And I go, huh,
Mhm.
nailed it. And so there's I think everybody has like they'll find the thing that works for them. And then one of the things that works for me is set the vision and for something and then go about your life. But always it's like if you program it just right, if you program the vision just right, you'll get there.
Yeah. No, I love that because I could relate in a way of we're moving and we're moving into a house and we wanted more space. And my wife is freaking out trying to find a spot. She's been looking for weeks. She's been on Zillow and like trying to call property owners and all this. And we had all these parameters, all these boxes we wanted to check. And then one day she's like, I'm just so stressed. I can't handle it. I pop open Zillow, Mike, like 5 minutes into it. I was like, oh, here's a spot. Send it to my wife. I'm like, hey, what do you think? There's like 12 of the shadiest pictures of the house, but I'm like, it's got everything we want, checks all the boxes. And she's like, oh, well, I don't know about it. It's up by the owner, by the homeowner. So we're like, all right, well, we got to take baby girl out. Let's just, what do you say? We just hop in the car and just check it out. So we drive to the neighborhood and we're at the end of the cul-de-sac and I'm driving around and my wife looks like, she goes, oh, I think I just saw somebody like walk outside. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go talk to him. She's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to him. Long story short,
Yeah.
ended up being the homeowner. He's chilling on a Friday and he's just like, do you guys want to check out the house? He brings us inside, gives us a tour, checks all of our boxes. I just got a Tesla. He's got a Tesla in the garage. He's like, I'll leave the Tesla charger for you. It was at 4 o'clock that I found the
Nice.
house, Mike. 7:30 that night, we committed to the house. And my wife is like, how the
Nice.
hell? I've been looking for weeks and you find it in like 3 hours. But
The thing that holds most people back from achieving this vision of the future is they get attached to how they think they're going to get there.
mm,
You got to let go of the how, especially when you're coming up with the vision in the first place. And I find that when I really loosen up my grip on how it's going to happen, that's when the miracle occurs. And then, like if I were to tell the average person, like, all right, go find a podcast co-host for your show, they would go out there and start interviewing people. They start posting about that specifically. They would start doing all these things. And and conventional wisdom would tell you don't stop until you find that person. But I have not found that to be the way things work out at all.
I would agree.
And I prefer it this way. You know, maybe that's the reality I'm creating is I don't have to know how it works, which sounds like a lot more of an enjoyable process than having to figure out how everything works.
Well, I would say, as someone who's exhausted a lot of their mental energy in trying to figure things out, the more I have learned, the more I recognize of how vastly ignorant we always will be. We can keep learning, we could try to figure out how it works, but we're never going to fully know. So I think the comfort is in the unknown. The comfort is in the uncertainty and knowing that we can only step into our actions, our behaviors, our beliefs, and the outcomes and the reality that comes from it will be the result of how we move and operate through this thing we call life, Mike. And I'm glad that the miracles linked us up as co-hosts, man. I feel complete today. How about you?
I do too.
Yeah, man. We covered a lot. Just a quick recap. Only two things exist: awareness and reality, right? The awareness and the reality piece. And which one are you focusing on? Probably best to settle into that awareness. And what we believe is what we are creating. Back to that reality piece. And then mainstream equals mediocrity. Where your attention flows, energy goes. If you're focused on the mainstream, you're not focused on what your identity and what your goals are. And I've never hit a metric that was satisfying. You have goals, you have KPIs, OKRs. Those are all great. And as you run your business, it's responsible to have those, but those don't define you. And here's the reality. When you hit those goals, that goalpost is going to move again. Suffering occurs when we struggle with reality. Where are you not accepting reality? And where is your belief going to usher in a new reality? And last but not least, let go of the how. The how will take care of itself. You just need to focus on your awareness, your actions, and where it is you truly want to go. And if you need help doing that, there's a whole community for that. Full Stack School Community's got you covered. Mike has a lot of info in there. And again, we'd love to see you chat and create this wonderful life together. That's Mike. I'm Ted. Thanks for checking out the Full Stack Podcast. We'll catch you next time.